Have you ever caught yourself doing something that made absolutely no sense? Maybe you bit your nails until they hurt. Maybe you checked the front door one more time, even though you knew it was locked. Or maybe you avoided a phone call for days because something inside you simply refused to answer. From the outside, these behaviors can look irrational, weak, even self-destructive. So we ask the obvious question, what's wrong with me? But what if that's the wrong question? What if your brain isn't trying to make your life harder? What if it's trying to protect you? Here's the strange thing about the human brain. It wasn't designed to make you happy. It evolved to keep you alive. And survival doesn't always look logical. Sometimes it chooses short-term relief over long-term well-being. Sometimes it repeats old strategies long after the danger has disappeared. That's why some of the behaviors we judge the most aren't random at all. They're solutions. Not good solutions, not healthy ones, but solutions nonetheless. And once you understand what a behavior is trying to accomplish, you stop seeing a broken person. You start seeing a brain doing its best with the tools it has. That doesn't mean every unusual habit signals a mental health condition. Most people occasionally bite their nails, procrastinate, or double-check the stove without having a disorder. Mental health professionals look at the bigger picture. How often a behavior happens, how long it lasts, how much distress it causes, and whether it significantly disrupts daily life. A single behavior, by itself, isn't enough to diagnose anything. Still, the question remains, why do these behaviors happen in the first place? Let's start with one of the most common. Imagine someone sitting at their desk. They don't even realize it, but their fingers have already found the skin around their nails. A few minutes later, they're picking again. It isn't because they enjoy pain. In fact, many people describe something completely different. For a brief moment, the tension inside them becomes quieter. It's almost like releasing steam from a pressure cooker. Then the relief fades, the guilt arrives, and the cycle begins again. Researchers call behaviors like nail biting, skin picking, and hair-pulling body-focused repetitive behaviors. These actions can become a way of regulating overwhelming emotions or internal tension, even though they often create new problems afterward. They're not simply bad habits. For some people, they become deeply ingrained coping strategies. Think about what that means. The behavior isn't really about the skin. It's about the stress. The skin simply becomes the place where the stress shows up. Now consider something completely different. You're halfway to work, then a thought appears. Did I lock the front door? You know you did. You remember turning the key. But somehow, certainty slips away, so you drive back, just to check. You feel relief for about 10 seconds. Then another doubt appears. This cycle can become extremely distressing for some people with obsessive-compulsive disorder, where compulsions are driven by intense anxiety rather than preference or perfectionism. But again, checking something twice on a stressful day doesn't automatically mean someone has OCD. The important question isn't whether a behavior exists, it's why it persists and what role it's playing in a person's life. Notice the pattern. The brain isn't searching for perfection, it's searching for certainty. And certainty feels impossible, so it asks for one more check, one more reassurance, one more ritual. Not because the ritual truly solves the problem, because it briefly quiets the alarm. That's something our brains do surprisingly often. When they can't remove uncertainty, they try to reduce the feeling of uncertainty. Those aren't always the same thing, and that's where many protective behaviors begin. Now think about someone who rarely says yes to invitations. They turn down dinners, ignore messages, leave parties early. From the outside, it can look cold, maybe even arrogant. People assume they don't like others, but sometimes the opposite is true. Sometimes they care so deeply about being accepted that every conversation feels like an exam they might fail. Every silence feels like rejection. Every awkward pause becomes proof that they don't belong. So their brain makes a simple calculation. If you never get close, you can never get hurt. It's a painful bargain, loneliness in exchange for safety. The same protective logic appears in many different forms. Take hoarding, for example. To someone walking into a cluttered home, the solution seems obvious. Just throw it away. But the emotional experience can be completely different. An old receipt isn't just paper. A broken mug isn't just a broken mug. Objects can become symbols of memories, identity, possibility, or security. Letting go of them can feel strangely similar to losing a part of yourself. That's why simply telling someone to clean up rarely solves the problem. You're addressing the objects. Their brain is protecting the emotions attached to those objects. Different behavior. Same hidden purpose. Protection. Then there are the moments that move in the opposite direction. Instead of avoiding action, someone acts before thinking. They quit a job overnight, spend money they don't have, book a flight without a plan, say something they'll regret 5 minutes later. We often celebrate impulsivity as courage. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's something else entirely. Our brains are constantly balancing two systems. One pushes toward immediate rewards, the other slows us down long enough to consider consequences. When stress, emotional overload, or certain mental health conditions disrupt that balance, immediate relief can become far more powerful than future consequences. Impulsivity itself isn't a diagnosis. It's a pattern that can appear in many different situations and conditions, as well as in people without any mental disorder at all. Again, the behavior makes more sense once you understand what it's trying to solve. But here's something even more surprising. Many of these behaviors survive long after the original danger disappears. Imagine someone who grew up in a home where mistakes were punished harshly. As a child, being perfect wasn't about success. It was about staying safe. Years later, they're living on their own. No one is yelling anymore. No one is watching. Yet they still feel intense anxiety every time they make a small mistake. Their environment changed. Their nervous system didn't get the memo. The brain is remarkably efficient. Whenever it discovers a strategy that reduces fear, it remembers. It doesn't spend much time asking whether that strategy is still useful years later. Its first priority is survival, not accuracy, not happiness, survival. That's why protective behaviors can become automatic. Not because people are weak, not because they're lazy, not because they're crazy, because repetition teaches the brain that this behavior works, even if it only works for a few seconds. And every time temporary relief follows the behavior, the lesson grows stronger. That's one of the most important ideas in psychology. Behaviors that reduce discomfort, even briefly, are more likely to happen again. The relief becomes the reward. The reward strengthens the habit. The habit becomes automatic. Suddenly, what looked like a personality flaw is actually a learning system doing exactly what it evolved to do. But there's a catch. What protects you today can imprison you tomorrow. A strategy that once reduced fear can slowly become the very thing that keeps fear alive. And that's where real change begins. Not by asking, how do I force myself to stop? But by asking something much deeper. What is this behavior still trying to protect? Here's the mistake we often make. We judge people by the behavior we can see. We almost never ask about the pain we can't. The person who keeps everyone at a distance may not be protecting their pride. They may be protecting a heart that learned rejection too early. The person who checks the lock again and again may not be obsessed with being perfect. They may be desperately searching for a feeling of safety. The person who can't stop picking at their skin may not lack self-control. They may be trying to quiet a level of inner tension that words can't reach. Different stories, different lives, the same nervous system, trying to survive. This doesn't mean every difficult behavior is healthy. Far from it. Some behaviors cause deep suffering, some damage relationships, some lead to physical harm, and some require professional assessment and treatment. Understanding a behavior is never the same as excusing it. Compassion doesn't replace accountability. It simply gives us a better place to begin. Because it's incredibly difficult to change a behavior when you're fighting the symptom instead of understanding its purpose. Imagine trying to silence a smoke alarm without looking for the fire. You might stop the noise, but the danger remains. Behaviors work the same way. They're often signals, not the whole problem, just the visible part. Real healing usually doesn't start with asking, how do I stop doing this? It starts with a different question. What need has this behavior been trying to meet? Sometimes the answer is safety. Sometimes it's certainty. Sometimes it's comfort. Sometimes it's connection. And sometimes it's simply relief. Once that hidden need becomes visible, something changes. Your attention shifts away from punishment and toward understanding. That doesn't magically erase years of learned patterns. Our brains don't rewrite themselves overnight, but they can learn. The same brain that learned protective habits through repetition can gradually learn healthier ones through new experiences, supportive relationships, and when needed, evidence-based treatment. Change is often slow, but the brain remains capable of adapting throughout life, which means your habits are not your identity. Your coping strategies are not your personality, and your hardest moments are not the whole story of who you are. Maybe that's the most hopeful thing neuroscience has taught us. Your brain isn't your enemy. It's an organ that learned to survive the best way it knew how. Sometimes brilliantly, sometimes imperfectly, sometimes in ways that no longer serve you. The goal isn't to hate those old strategies. It's to thank them for getting you this far, and then teach your brain that it no longer has to fight today's battles with yesterday's survival tools. So the next time you notice a behavior that seems strange, whether it's in yourself or someone else, pause before asking, what's wrong with them? Try asking something far more human. What might they be trying to protect? That single question won't answer everything, but it might be the beginning of understanding. And sometimes, understanding is where healing quietly begins. If this perspective changed the way you think about human behavior, you'll probably enjoy our next conversation, where we'll explore why the brain clings to old emotional patterns long after life has changed, and how those patterns can finally begin to loosen.